Every day, you make decisions that affect you and the people you care about. So do your elected officials. That's why elections are so important, because you are picking the leaders who will make choices that directly impact you and your community. Vote411.org is your tool for accurate and unbiased election information, whether you're registering to vote or learning more about your local candidates. Your vote is your megaphone. Use it to pick the leaders you trust. Get online, get the facts, and make your voice heard on Election Day.
Moving forward.
Hmm. So the first part of all of our interviews with everyone is I like to get a little breakdown on what your office does before we talk about what you'd want to do with your office. So if you could explain what a council member does for our listeners out there.
Okay, so we kind of introduce and take care of our community on the local level. We don't have the say, unfortunately, in things like raising minimum wage or influencing really like Department of Education things. I know that money is really an issue for a lot of people, and the education here is really important to a lot of people. We can speak to the state level on those things and speak for our community. Really, we do a lot of listening and being the voice for our community on the higher levels. We do make some laws. We can limit things like Airbnbs, which is great. We can insist that women are paid the same as their male counterparts in certain jobs, that kind of thing. So we introduce laws on the local level.
Thank you for that. You know, there's been a lot of people have given the right definition, yourself included, but you've all given a little insight or different way to talk about it. And I think that's important about the listening factor and what can actually be done. You know, a lot of you guys hit the nail on the head as far as like the general legislative, what your job does, but like I feel that there's a lot of stuff that city council members get hung up for by the public, that they don't understand that how much their hands are tied, because they really are listeners first and then legislators after.
Yes, yes. And there are certain things as well as limitations because we are considered a part of the United States. That has its own limitations in that we cannot do the incredible thing that like New Zealand did and forbid outside investors from purchasing property here, which would be incredible if we could. But because we are considered part of the United States, we don't have that jurisdiction.
I like where that conversation could go. I want to put a little check mark on that for another time. I feel like I could go like down a deep one with you on that conversation. Let's get into you though. Let's get a little backstory on Nara and tell us, you know, where you come from, where your roots are, and what hailed you to this calling.
Well, I grew up in haiku. I am the third oldest of 9 kids. My mother was a midwife. My father was a photographer. My dad, Chico Boone, was an amazing photographer. Back in the day when like Kahumanu wasn't that major and like Christmas pictures with Santa were at Maui Mall, my dad was the designated photographer, and he had the knack for taking pictures while kids that were freaking out were breathing. So on their inhale, it looked like they might be smiling, and he could capture the shot. He was a wizard at that. My mother was a midwife, and so I grew up with the community at our door. You know, hearing the tires in the gravel, and is Tina here? And then listening while a baby was born in our bathroom or the side room or in the gazebo behind our house. So helping community has always been just something that we did as a family. I myself am a professional singer and a voice teacher. I've been singing since I was about 13 professionally, and teaching for probably close to 15 years now, something like that. I specialize in helping people find their voices, especially those that have dealt with maybe childhood trauma or domestic violence or sexual assault, those things that make people feel powerless and makes them feel unheard. And so my job as a voice teacher is not only to, help people sing better, but really it's to release their authentic voice and their own personal power. And then that bleeds out into the rest of their lives and how they communicate with the rest of the world. It's kind of incredible. I teach in the schools as well. This past year I taught. Thankfully, I haven't been able to teach in the schools the last 2 years because of the pandemic and singing being kind of a dangerous activity with the particles flying in the air. But this past year, I got to teach at haiku school and then at Roots School and then at Seabury Summer Program. And one of the things that was especially touching this year for me is I walked into a classroom and the teacher said, I have one student that I know is just not going to participate. He's special needs. He's not going to engage. We're just going to let him do his own thing. And within 5 minutes, that kid was on the carpet and he was doing the vocal warm-ups. And he ended up being the one to memorize the lyrics the best, sing the song the best. It was just incredible. She was just like, this is really touching to see him emerge as a little person with the rest of the class, and actually becoming a leader of the class when she didn't think that he was going to participate at all. Originally, I was asked, I was on my way to Akaku to sit in, substitute as the news anchor for the Maui Daily, the Akaku news show. And my friend Kate Griffiths called me and said, I have one question for you, but it's a big one. Would you consider running for Maui County Council? And I just laughed. I laughed like, this is not my forte, She said, Nara, you carry yourself well, you listen to others, you have dealt with so many different family members that you know how to deal with different personalities, you're a fixture in the community, and you can help people. So I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and then Uncle Alika Atai contacted one of my sisters and asked that someone in our family run, because we have longtime educators in our family. My brother's a first responder. We have small business owners. We're just, we're very involved in the community. And when that second call happened, I decided to answer. My mom I used to assist her with home births. And she said to me, Nara, if people are asking to have your presence there, that means that this is something that you're meant to do. And I remembered that, if I can help people on a larger scale, then I absolutely want to do it, because we need help. We need help, and we need people to see us, those that are the foundation of the community that are struggling so hard, when all these people with money can just do whatever they want, and the rest of us that are the real lifeblood of the islands are having to move off island and, and struggle. So I figured if I can help, I will help. And that's why I'm running.
Right on. So,
Yeah.
wow. With that being said, what have you been hearing from your community then? What has what is needed the most right now?
What is needed? What is needed is affordable, I'm sorry, my thing is going off. Attainable housing. We need a lower cost of living. We need food sustainability. Those are some of the things, but we also need better care of those that are at risk here, those with mental illness, especially with this pandemic. And honestly, if you look at things like mental illness and drug abuse, a lot of that comes just from the stress of trying to survive here.
Absolutely.
So it's all intertwined, but we need better care for mental health and for addiction and for houselessness, but it's just all combined. And that's what I'm hearing from the community. We need somebody that will stand up and fight for us. I sorry, I was reminded, I used to work at the show Ulalena. It's an award-winning show that was in Lahaina for 19 years, that I was the lead, one of the two original lead vocalists for the first 10 years. And the general manager said of me once that I was the best and worst kind of employee. And I was the best because I was passionate about my job, and I was the worst because I stood up for others. And I advocated for others. I haven't stopped. That's still who I am. And I plan to do that for the community.
Right on. I totally feel you. As a member of the entertainment industry, I can totally hear a manager somewhere out there telling you to not be sticking up for someone. So like it's a rough world out there. So to be able to hold on to that outspokenness and continue to the point to where a community would seek you, that's an important thing. So I'm glad that you haven't lost sight of that. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, in response to what people need, what do you feel as per if you had the position that you could accomplish with it?
Some of the things I could accomplish, I want to make sure that development that's done for housing is really, actually, truly affordable housing for our community and the longtime residents. I would love to see, all these empty buildings here. We just keep building out, there's so many empty buildings between Maui Mall, Ka'ahumanu, Maui Marketplace, and now there's Ho'okele. Even like Kulamalu up in Kula by Longs. There's so many empty commercial spaces that on the county level we could rezone and make those multi-use dwellings and get us more housing, as opposed to these, affordable housing projects that are not 100% affordable housing. If they are, they start at $500,000. I mean, it takes a lot of money to
well, and then I feel that like that's only if they get made on time, because then a lot of these are like part of those package deals with the McMansions. So like we have to wait on a couple McMansions get made, and then they go, oh yeah, I'll finally make those ones that I promised you, and then they take so long that the housing market's gone up again, and that house that was going to clock in at like 350 to 500 is going to turn into 750. I mean, for as long as it's going to take for that workforce housing to happen in the valley, I don't really see those houses, like, unless something's done to really like help hold the housing economy down, like it's just going to keep inflating at this rate.
Absolutely. And Gabe Johnson and Keani Rollins Fernandez have done some really incredible work advocating for the community. Keani giving Kuleana lands, shoreline lands, tax breaks so that their property taxes aren't skyrocketing to compare to the mansion right next to them. Or Gabe Johnson with this affordable housing, the list, the kama'aina, you have to be kama'aina. Now, here's where the limit comes in. You have to be kama'aina for at least 2 years to be considered first on the list. So the longer you've been on the island, the higher up you are on the affordable housing list. Mm-hmm. I wish it could be 10 years. I wish it could be 15. It could be the true people of the islands and not someone that just moved here in the beginning of the pandemic. But once again, We're considered part of the United States. And so that limitation is there as well. The county cannot interfere in business on land, like regulating the rents necessarily, but they can say how the land can be used, if that makes sense. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I just went on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, this is your time this is our time to get to know you, and time for you to expand on the things that are, nearest to you on the matter. I mean,
Yeah.
especially since
So thank you. That got me back on track. Something else I'm really interested in and passionate about is when these affordable housing projects are done, when any neighborhoods are done, really, I want more complete streets and greenways and open spaces. My father, the photographer, John Chico Boone, he was actually killed on Hana Highway riding his bicycle. And I would say in the last year, there have been so many casualties of pedestrians and bicyclists, and those poor couple people that were sleeping in their car because it was cheaper than getting a hotel or anything else. They were workers from Lanai, and they were sleeping in their car overnight to go back the next day, and they were hit and killed in their car. That needs to stop. We need to have places where people can bike safely, walk safely, removed from the roadways. That's big on my list. And something else that I want to do for our community has been talked about forever, and that's a birth center. My mom was known as Tina the midwife. She was a midwife here for almost 40 years, delivered assisted. She wouldn't say she delivered. She assisted the moms in their delivery of hundreds and hundreds of babies. During this pandemic, I watched so many expectant mothers begging for midwives or begging for an alternative from the hospital that was limiting, only one person in the labor and delivery, or afraid of COVID or whatever it is. And all the midwives were at max capacity as well. So a birthing center that could combine the expertise of midwives and the expertise of doctors and have medical equipment and have a breast milk bank, which I think is really important, especially now with this formula shortage. The panic of mothers searching for that last, canister or can of formula on the shelves has been heartbreaking. And if we had a breast milk bank, that is food security for our babies. So that's something else that I would like to see happen. And I would definitely start to facilitate should I be elected.
Right on. So do you feel there's any other major highlights of your campaign that you haven't touched on yet?
Well, I want to incentivize our young minds. We have so many talented people here.
Absolutely.
It's really mind-boggling. So many intelligent people here, and so many that have to move off the island to make a living in their careers.
Yep.
If we could incentivize those with these incredible minds that go away for their education, if we could incentivize them to come back, with some kind of hiring bonuses, with fantastic actual wages or lowered rents, and essential workers. Nursing is an essential. It's an absolute essential for our communities. And teaching as well. If we could have more programs for nursing and teaching, and training in agriculture and those kind of things, and then give them some kind of subsidized break on their rent as a thank you for what they are doing for our communities, that I think that would help with the retention too, as far as, right now it's $40 and 8 hours of training, and you can become a substitute teacher because we're so desperate. You no longer need a degree. other than a GED or a college high school diploma
A
to
sweeping
teach.
problem across America. You know,
Yes.
it's a but yeah, no, and I absolutely feel you on trying to get the Keikis to stay. You know, I mean, my grandparents were those kids back
Mhm.
in the Vietnam era. That's how my
Mhm.
grandfather took his way out because it just wasn't affordable to stay in Makawao, and my grandmother didn't want to just sit on the rock in the Pili anymore, so that was how they took their
Yeah.
chance. And you know, it's been a long way back for my family, but I have to say that that's something really important, especially seeing all these kids coming out of these new UH programs, because we've got kids
Mhm.
all these new arts programs, all these new like business programs. I mean, we're making some Akamai kids, but like we can't hold on to them because there's no jobs or at least jobs willing to give them the opportunity. You know, I think that that's another thing too, is that we have a whole generation of discounted intelligence that's just not really been given a chance to shine because there's a bias in that way too.
I agree. I agree. And if we had those minds staying here, that is the answer to the shift away from tourism, because then we function in all the other ways and we don't need to import nurses or these teachers that come for a year and are blown away by the cost of living and so they leave. Or if we hired from within instead of hiring from the mainland, um, then we would have the engineers and have people in agriculture and have people in education, and that would build our whole community up. I have a brother that's a park ranger, and he worked in Volcano National Park for 10 years and moved back to Maui when my mother was sick. Um, a year before she died, he moved back here and worked up at Haleakala. And after she passed, he recently had to move to the mainland because his new boss was hired from the mainland, and she was only promoting people that she would bring in and not promoting from the inside. And when he moved here from Volcano, he lost his seniority because he wanted to spend the last year, with our mom before she passed. So that was the sacrifice that he made, but now he's had to make another sacrifice in leaving the island altogether to get higher status as a park ranger in the National Park Service. And then his plan is to come back when he has that higher, position.
Wow.
Yeah. There are challenges on so many different levels here.
That there are. Well, I will have to say this. There's so much we unpacked and so much more that we could cover. So I'd like to ask you, could I get you back on air sometime soon, and we can cover more of this in detail.
I'd love to. I would love to.
Right on. So could you tell everybody how they could support and follow your campaign and interact with you?
Yes, you can go to votenaraboone.com. I have a lot of information on there now as it's building up, as far as interviews and videos and more about me. There's also a donate button on there if you'd like to help out. I'm grassroots. I'm not taking big money. Um, I'm sticking with us. I'm sticking with our community, and that's who I care about. You can also go to Facebook. There is Vote Nara Boone for Maui County Council. It's a long title, but it's there on Facebook. And then on Instagram, I believe it's Vote Nara Boone as well. And I do check my messages and I do respond to people. And I also want to say that those that are sending me the private messages of, I voted for you, um, I I cannot express the gratitude and the sense of responsibility I feel to fulfill that vote of confidence. It means the world to me.
Right on. Well, we'll make sure to put all those links in the show notes. and we'll cross our fingers for you, and hopefully we'll have something positive to talk about after these primaries, right?
Right on. Sounds good, Kawika.
Right on, Nara. Well, mahalo for joining us today, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Thanks for having me. Aloha.
Aloha.
Rabbit Holes is a MAKAWAO production. This episode was produced by Kawika Hoke and Sarah Rodriguez. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast platforms to add our weekly episodes to your queue.